the possibilities of what we want to do with the old high school. And we decided we wanted to allow some public comment. Prior to that, I am going to turn the time over to the superintendent for a little presentation, and then we'll open it up for public comment. We'll allow no more than 3 minutes per comment, just so we allow those who would like to comment.
Is there anybody here?
Thank you, and we appreciate those who are here to provide comment on this particular issue today. We're here to discuss the possibility of demolition of the old Wasatch High School, and we're anxious to hear how the public feels about that. But prior to that, I've been asked by the board to give some information relative to that. So with that in mind, let's see if I can do this correctly, Jill. It's going to work. I have 3 objectives in this brief presentation. Talk about the efforts to sell the property, talk about the ongoing expenditures to maintain it, talk about the cost benefits of proposed demolition. Those are the things that I'm going to do in this brief presentation. So with that, looking on the efforts to sell the property, you can see that when the bond was passed on November the 7th in 2006, we made it very clear that there was an intent to sell the property. In fact, in the voter information pamphlet that was given as information for people for the bond, there was a comment in it, and it basically says this: the current high school facility will be sold. The building may or may not be torn down depending on the desires of those who wish to purchase the property. So we've been talking about that particular issue and the idea, the possibility of that happening ever since the decision was made to go ahead and pursue a new high school. We passed the bond, and now we are where we are today. So the new high school was completed and occupied in August of 2009. We immediately after occupation, after we went and occupied the new high school, we began to advertise that this was for sale by owner in the fall of 2009. Now, we also approached local government entities. They did explore but did not pursue a purchase agreement around the property. In 2011, in January, we actually had the property in contract for some time, but the person who purchased the property was unable to complete the contract, and so that contract wasn't completed, and we continued to do what we are presently doing, trying to sell the property. And so during this same time, we've had various different types of potential buyers come to us, but we have no new existing contracts to this point. So it's been very obvious to us, what's in the way. Well, we, in January of 2013, listed the property with a commercial real estate firm. And so now that brings us up to this point where we're at right now. Next slide, let's see if I can do that.
I just want to make a comment that we did put that out for an RFP for any real estate company to present a proposal to us.
That's correct. Thank you. Okay. Let's talk about the cost part now. So here's where we are just to take care of this particular piece of property today. It costs us $45,000 a year to maintain the property empty. Plus all the additional employee time to kind of go check on it, make sure there are things going on. When you look at this particular picture, I don't know if we can get the pointer working or not, but if you look at the door, where the door is there, you can see that that's, we'll just go ahead and point to it, Jill. You can see that door has had to have something on it because of vandalism that's taken place. There have been numerous incidences of little vandalisms like this that have gone on to the property while we've been trying to sell it. And we've had insurance claims. I think many of you remember when the roof on the gym folded up in a very severe windstorm. That's an example of a damage that we've had. Or break-ins with glass, or doors, or those kinds of things. There have been a few of those too. Okay, let's go on. Now, we're getting at what we consider the problem to be. It is the building as it relates to trying to sell this particular piece of property. So why is the building a problem? Well, everybody who looks at it and then starts doing their due diligence about, well, if we're going to get interested in this, we better examine all of the kinds of things that might make this attractive to us. They come to the same kinds of conclusions that, you know, that are problematic when somebody's going to come in and try to buy something that's existing and then have to transform it into something new. They came into problems with seismic, electrical, plumbing, heating, cooling, and roofing problems. They all exist. Let's just give an example of that. The water plumbing issues are very, very old. And again, the failure possibilities for those kinds of things obviously become more problematic as time goes on. That's an example, but that same kind of example exists in all of these other things, and in particular, when you're going to have to retrofit a new building or put it from one purpose to another, you have to deal with all of these things as it relates to the new current codes, seismic, electrical, etc. The structures themselves, from time to time, lended themselves to just a narrow group of people who were coming to look at, you know, as possible people to consider looking at this property. They had to be looking at, what do we do with the great big places like an auditorium or a gym, 2 gyms, as well as all these different classrooms as they are the office areas, etc. So all of that ended up who would be interested in those kinds of things. We have various different people from time to time come and look, and as they considered what they might do, but the group itself tended to be fairly narrow as we think about it over the last several years. Here's the big piece here. The property is estimated to be worth $590,000 more without the structures. So you take the facilities down, and it becomes more valuable. Obviously, that's a great big deal. So let's talk about demolition now. If we were to take the building down, it will take 4 to 6 months to complete. We have to also both secure and mitigate and remove hazardous waste materials. That has to also be part of this particular process by taking the building down. We're considering, and I'm recommending to the board, if we're going to demolish this, that we demolish all of the buildings. And the debris has to be removed. But at the same time, we have to make it attractive to those who might be purchasing the property by maintaining the property with what's left. And so the way to do that in our mind is to subdivide it and make it attractive for potential commercial developers. So, what are the costs of demolition? This is what, people want to know also. It's our feeling that the demolition costs are going to be somewhere in the range of $675,000 to $725,000. That includes all of the things I've talked about. That includes the hazardous materials things, as well as removing the debris from the site. So with that, and you should have picked up hopefully a flyer that basically outlines the same things that I just talked about as part of this presentation. So, Board President Baird, I think that's my presentation.
Thank you. We will now go ahead and open up the podium. We'd like you to come to the podium, state your name, address, and make any comment that you would like. The board may respond, the board may not respond. We I'm just going to leave that up to individual board members if they'd like to respond, or if you just want to listen to the public comment. So I'll open it up.
The superintendent alluded to the fact that when the bond was passed, that the intent was to sell the building. And I do want to articulate that as this new board came together, we re-examined that decision very significantly and looked at it, at utilizing that building for school purposes and the impact that that would be. And I will admit, I was a huge advocate for making that happen. And when I started seeing the dollar figures that were associated with making that a reality, I had to have a mind shift. And I think other board members looked at it very seriously once again because of the need for space and expansion and how could we possibly make it work. And as the superintendent talked in the presentation, it is very expensive to retrofit that building for educational purposes, especially the older parts.
Gotcha.
My name is Doug Murdoch at 879 East, 530 North in Beaver. A couple of questions. First of all, in the proposals to sell the property, I even offered a while ago to buy a piece of the property, but it was going to be a one lump sum. And I don't know if there have been other offers to buy sections of it, and that's been thrown out time and time again, or is it just my offer didn't go through? I didn't even make a formal, dollar offer. You said that you weren't interested in buying or having me buy a big chunk of the piece. I've looked at buying in the school, but I've thought long and hard. It's just too much effort to try and redo everything inside. If you do tear it down, have you studied the options of actually selling a lot of what's in there instead of just raising the entire thing, the bulldozer and the trackhoe, the wiring that can be sold, the theater seats that I'm sure locals would love to have for their own barns or projects, and all kinds of things. The wood floors you can actually sell. So I'd hate to see it just torn down and thrown in the dump. I think you can make a profit actually off of a lot of the stuff that's in there. That's all.
Thank you.
We did, I know we did get some feedback from people that they would like a brick or we should do something, but I love the idea of the seats and other parts.
I guess the only comment I would make on that is it might depend, if we decide to take the building down, it may depend on the bid, and if the particular company that wants to take it down wants to keep some of that material. So I don't know, at this point, that's just the only comment I would make on that.
And Blake, on the bleachers, for example, the new gym, I'm sure somebody could use those, or if they build a new pool in this county, put the bleachers in the pool so you can have actually seating for individuals at the tournaments.
I think that's a great comment.
Suggestion. Thanks, Ben.